Think about the last time someone upset you, or the last time a relationship started to feel too heavy, too demanding, too complicated. Did you sit down and explain how you felt? Did you find the words, send the message, have the conversation? Or did you go quiet? Did you pull back, stop responding, make yourself smaller? Maybe even disappear entirely? If you're the kind of person who shuts down instead of speaking up, who ghosts instead of confronting, who withdraws instead of explaining, this video is for you. Because what most people call avoidance or immaturity or even being cold is actually something much deeper and much more understandable than you've been led to believe. Today, we're going to talk about why you disappear and what it really means. When silence feels safer than speaking. Let's start with a question. Why would someone choose to say nothing at all rather than simply explain themselves? On the surface, it doesn't make sense. Communication seems like the obvious solution. But for many people, especially those with certain emotional histories, communication doesn't feel like a solution. It feels like a threat. When you've grown up in an environment where expressing your feelings led to punishment, dismissal, ridicule, or escalation, your nervous system learned something important. Saying how I feel is dangerous. And so it built a defense. Not a wall you chose consciously, but an automatic wired-in response. When conflict arises, the system doesn't think, it reacts. And that reaction often looks like disappearing. What is conflict avoidance as a trauma response? Trauma doesn't have to mean a single dramatic event. Trauma can be the slow accumulation of moments where you didn't feel safe emotionally, physically, or relationally. Growing up with a parent who raged when confronted, being in relationships where your feelings were used against you, learning that speaking up made things worse, not better, being told you were too sensitive every time you tried to express pain. These experiences teach the nervous system to associate conflict with danger, and when the brain perceives danger, it activates its survival system, fight, flight, or freeze. For conflict avoiders, the response is almost always flight or freeze. You flee the conversation, you go silent, you leave, you stop replying. Or you freeze, you want to speak but the words won't come. Your mind goes blank, your chest tightens, and you just shut down. This is not a character flaw. This is a survival strategy that once kept you safe and hasn't fully updated to your current reality yet. The shutdown, what's actually happening in your body. Have you ever been in the middle of an argument and felt your mind just go offline? You want to respond. You know you should say something, but it's like the words have been wiped. You feel numb, distant, almost outside of your own body. That is called emotional shutdown, and it has a name in neuroscience, the dorsal vagal state. When the nervous system decides that a threat is too overwhelming to fight or flee from, it collapses inward. Heart rate drops. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for language, reasoning, and emotional expression, goes partially offline. You are not being stubborn. You are not playing games. Your body has literally entered a protective state where complex communication is neurologically impossible in that moment. This is why you can't just explain yourself in the heat of the moment. It's not that you don't want to. It's that your system has gone into lockdown, and no amount of pressure from the outside will unlock it faster. Ghosting, the slow disappearance. Now, let's talk about ghosting, because this is where conflict avoidance gets misunderstood the most. Ghosting has a bad reputation. It's seen as cruel, cowardly, immature, and in some contexts, those criticisms are fair. But for trauma survivors, ghosting is rarely about cruelty. It's about overwhelm. When a relationship or situation feels too emotionally loaded, when the idea of having a conversation brings up so much anxiety, dread, or shame that your system can't handle it disappearing, feels like the only way to survive. It's not, I don't care about you. It's, I care so much, and I am so afraid of this conversation that I have no idea how to show up for it. It's, every time I've tried to explain myself, it's ended badly, so I've stopped trying. It's, I would rather you think I'm cold than watch you get angry, disappointed, or leave anyway. Ghosting, for many avoiders, is a preemptive act of self-protection. It's choosing the pain you know, distance over the pain you're terrified of, rejection, conflict, humiliation. Emotional withdrawal, disappearing while still present. There's a subtler form of disappearing that doesn't involve leaving at all. It's called emotional withdrawal, and it might be the most common version of this pattern. This is when you're physically present but emotionally gone. You're in the relationship, you're in the room, you're still replying to messages, but you've pulled something back. You've gone cold. You've stopped sharing. You've put up an invisible wall that even you might not fully understand. Emotional withdrawal is often how avoidant people punish or process conflict without ever naming it. Instead of saying, "I'm hurt" or "I'm overwhelmed," they go quiet. They become distant. They stop initiating. And the tragedy is, it often creates exactly the dynamic they feared. Their partner feels the distance, gets anxious, pushes for connection, and the avoider withdraws further. A painful cycle that can destroy relationships, not because either person is bad, but because neither has learned how to bridge their different survival styles. The inner world of the conflict avoider. From the outside, conflict avoiders can look detached, cold, or unbothered. People assume they don't care, that they feel nothing. The reality is almost always the opposite. Most conflict avoiders feel everything intensely. They replay arguments in their head for days. They obsess over things they should have said. They feel deep guilt and shame about going silent. They want connection desperately, but the path to it feels treacherous. The inner narrative often sounds like this. If I say how I feel, they'll get angry. If I explain myself, they won't believe me anyway. It's easier to just let it go than to deal with what happens if I bring it up. I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to make things worse. I'll just handle it alone. There's an exhausting loneliness to this. You carry your pain privately, in silence, because somewhere along the way, you learned that sharing it wasn't safe, and you get very, very good at appearing fine. Where this comes from, the origins of avoidance. Let's trace this back to the root, because understanding the origin is the first step to changing the pattern. Conflict avoidance as a survival strategy typically forms in childhood or early adolescence, in environments where emotional expression wasn't safe. Households where one or both parents were volatile, where any disagreement could erupt into rage, punishment, or emotional cruelty. Families where emotions were simply not discussed, where "we don't talk about feelings" was an unspoken rule, and vulnerability was seen as weakness. Relationships where expressing your truth led to consequences, being abandoned, mocked, manipulated, or gaslighted. Repeated experiences of not being heard, which taught you that speaking up was pointless. In all of these cases, the message absorbed was the same. My feelings are not welcome here. And so you learn to make them invisible, starting with making yourself invisible. How to begin to change. Here's the part that requires honesty. Conflict avoidance protects you in the short term, but costs you deeply in the long term. It keeps you safe from imagined danger, but it also keeps you isolated, misunderstood, and stuck in patterns that no longer serve you. So how do you begin to change? The first step is not just communicate more. That advice, while well-meaning, misses the point entirely. You can't logic your way out of a nervous system response. Before you can speak up, you have to make it feel safe to speak up. That starts with understanding your own triggers. What specific situations cause you to shut down or withdraw? What does conflict feel like in your body? Tightness in the chest, a blank mind, a racing heart. Learning to notice the signal before the shutdown gives you a small window of choice. It also means slowly, gently, practicing tolerating the discomfort of being seen. Start small. Tell someone one honest thing. Notice that the world didn't end. Let that be enough for now. Therapy, especially somatic or trauma-informed therapy, can be enormously helpful here. Not because you're broken, but because these patterns run deep, and having a skilled, safe person to practice being honest with can change everything. And perhaps most importantly, offer yourself some compassion. The part of you that disappears instead of explaining that part was trying to protect you. It learned this from real experiences of real pain. You don't have to shame it away. You have to gently, patiently teach it something new. If you recognized yourself in this video, if you've spent years going quiet instead of being heard, I want you to hear this. You are not broken. You are not cold. You are not difficult. You are someone who learned to survive in ways that made sense at the time. And now, slowly, you get to learn something different. You get to learn that conflict doesn't always mean danger, that your words have value, that the right people will stay even when you tell them the truth. Disappearing kept you safe once, but you deserve more than just safety. You deserve to be fully known.